Hey guys, tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. This isn't the romanticized version with flowing gowns and candlelit seductions. There are no flirtatious glances across banquet halls, no damsels with secrets to whisper. No, tonight we're stepping into the cramped back alleys, the smoky taverns, and the beds that creaked with survival, not pleasure. Tonight, you're not watching from the safety of a castle. You are the story. You're waking up in the life of a medieval prostitute. But before we begin, if you enjoy this kind of grounded, slightly grim, slow history to fall asleep to, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly want more. And drop a comment letting me know what time it is where you're watching. I always love seeing which corners of the world you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum in the background. Let the room grow a little quieter. Let your thoughts settle into shadows. And let's slip together into tonight's story. Tonight's journey. What medieval prostitutes really did all day. Let's be clear. This isn't about glamour. This is about a woman, maybe you, waking up in a city that doesn't love her. In a society that both uses and condemns her. Where your body is your currency, your shield, your prison, and your product. This is not the history they taught in school. It's the one whispered between alley walls, scribbled in court records, and left behind in the margins of moral sermons. We're not here to judge. We're here to witness. To understand what life was like for the women, sometimes girls, sometimes men who lived on society's edge and worked one of the oldest professions in a time of candles, plagues, and public penance, because being a prostitute in the Middle Ages wasn't one thing. It was many things, and all of them complicated. In some cities, you were taxed and tolerated. In others, arrested or worse. Sometimes you were protected by law. Sometimes you were stripped and paraded through the streets in chains. But even in the cities that allowed you to exist, life was far from easy. The clothes itched. The meals were sparse. The beds were never clean. And the clients came in many forms: drunken merchants, bored clergy, brutal soldiers, or desperate peasants with stolen coins and few boundaries. And always there was risk of disease, of violence, of being cast out, or worse, kept. And yet, within this world, there was also resilience, strategies, sisterhoods, hidden networks of women trying to survive, trying to find a little corner of dignity in a system that offered none. Over the next 2 hours, we'll walk through that world step by step. You'll wake up in a cramped, lice-infested bed. You'll eat, work, sweat, clean, navigate lawmen, moralists, and sickness. You'll see how religion tried to control your body, how customers came and went, how you laughed with other women between sorrows, how you dealt with injuries, pregnancies, shame, and survival. You'll live a full day in her shoes, and by the time it's over, you might find yourself grateful, deeply grateful not to have been born into her world. So settle in. Let the hum of the past rise up like fog from cobblestone. Let it wrap around you, thick with the scent of sweat, incense, and wood smoke. Because this is the real story of what medieval prostitutes did all day. And you're about to wake up in her bed. You wake up in her world. It's cold, damp, the kind of chill that clings to your spine and settles in your chest before you're even fully conscious. Your back aches before your eyes open, but that's normal. It's always like this. Your mattress is nothing more than a thin sack of straw, lumpy, sour, flattened from too many nights and too many bodies. It stinks of mildew and old sweat. You try to stretch, but your limbs are stiff, and your shoulder throbs from where someone's knee pinned it the wrong way last night. You'd be annoyed, but you don't remember his name, or face, or if he paid. That happens more often than you'd like to admit. The blanket barely covers you, a threadbare piece of wool, hole-ridden and scratchy against your skin, pulled tight to trap whatever heat you manage to generate overnight. It's not enough. It never is. Somewhere nearby, a mouse scuttles under the boards, bold in the quiet of the morning. You hear it nibbling something, probably the crust of bread you were saving, or your only remaining toe rag. The light in the room is grey, dull, seeping through a slit of warped wood where a shutter doesn't quite meet the frame. Outside, it's still early, still misty. The sun hasn't yet burned through the fog, and that's fine. The world is quieter in the fog, less judgmental, less cruel. You shift slightly and wince. Something sticky beneath you. Not blood, at least not fresh. Maybe wine, maybe something else. You'll wash it later, or you won't. There's no time to care. You're in what passes for a rented space in a brothel if you're lucky, or a corner of a tenement if you're not. Some women have entire rooms to themselves. You're not one of them. You share this with another girl. Her name is Bruna, though you're not sure that's her real name. No one uses their real name here. Real names are for wives. For women with dowries, and rings, and husbands who don't smell like rotting meat. Bruna isn't here. She's been gone since sometime before dawn. That probably means she found a customer who wanted to keep her warm through the night. Good for her. Fewer bodies in the room means more space to breathe. The air is heavy. Not warm, but thick. You can smell old ale, dried urine, a faint trace of rose water trying and failing to cover something deeper, something human. It's always there. The scent of sweat and sex and desperation. You've stopped noticing it mostly. Except in the mornings, when it clings to your tongue and reminds you that you're still here, still alive, still working. Your mouth tastes sour, your teeth ache. You meant to chew fennel seeds last night but forgot. You were too tired, too drunk, too busy pretending not to be cold while some old man with fish breath called you his angel and pressed silver into your palm like it was a gift, not a transaction. You sit up slowly, your knees crack, your hip pops. The ache is deep in your joints now, worse when it's raining. The weather affects you more than it should. You're 20-something, maybe. You don't know your exact age. No one keeps count here. Time is measured in customers, in coin, in how long it takes your bruises to fade. You reach for your shift, a thin linen thing crumpled at the foot of the mattress. It's still damp. From what? You're not sure. Doesn't matter. You pull it over your head. It's torn near the hem, where someone got too eager. You keep meaning to stitch it, but needles are expensive, and thread even more so. No mirror in this room. You haven't seen your reflection in weeks. You touch your face to make sure it's still your own. There's a sore on your lip that wasn't there yesterday. You press it gently. It weeps. You sigh. From the floorboards below, a shout. The brothel keeper barking at someone, probably one of the new girls. She's always harsh with the fresh ones. Breaks them early, before the job does. A second voice yells back. Then laughter. Then coughing. Always coughing. You don't know if it's the damp air or the bad wine or something worse. But someone's lungs are giving out. You swing your legs off the bed and step onto the floor, cold wood, splintered and stained. Your feet are bare. You try not to think about what's soaking into them. A rat scurries past. You don't flinch. You've grown used to the rats. They're easier to deal with than the men. You dig through a pile of cloth for your outer dress. It's dark brown, coarse wool, heavy, smells faintly of lavender and piss. You lift it to your nose and inhale. It's not terrible, not good, but not terrible. You've worn worse. The dress goes on over your head. It's tight in the sleeves now. Your arms are thicker than they used to be. Muscle, mostly. Holding yourself up. Holding others off. holding buckets, carrying shame like it weighs nothing. You find your belt, leather, cracked, a pouch tied to it with 3 coins inside. You jingle them softly. Not enough for bread and firewood. You'll need more by nightfall. You always need more. At the bottom of the pouch, a little twist of cloth with your last bit of rouge. You'll use it sparingly, just a dab on the cheeks. Enough to look healthy. Enough to fake warmth. Pale faces don't sell well. Not unless the customer has strange tastes. You hear footsteps on the stairs. Heavy ones. Men's boots. Probably here for Bruna. Or maybe for you. You reach for your shawl. Pull it around your shoulders. Sit on the edge of the bed. And wait. No one knocks in this place. The footsteps pause outside your door. You don't breathe. They move on. Relief. For now. You stand, stretch, wince again, and reach for the pitcher on the washstand. It's half full. The water inside is cloudy. You splash some on your face anyway. It's freezing. And it stings. But it wakes you up. Your day has begun. Not with breakfast. Not with comfort. But with awareness. You are awake. You are here. You are alive. For now. And outside that door, the city is already moving. Men are walking to market. Monks are ringing bells. Women with husbands are sweeping their thresholds. The butcher's boy is tossing scraps to the dogs. And somewhere, a priest is writing a sermon about sin while thinking of women like you. You press your hands to your sides. Feel the bones beneath. Still thin, still strong. You are not holy. You are not helpless. You are not wanted. Not really. But you are needed. By someone, for something. The world doesn't see you, but it uses you. And now, it's time to go be used again. You've woken up. Now it's time to clean what you can and find something to eat. You step outside into the narrow alley, and the first thing that hits you is the smell. Not just one smell layers, a bouquet of city rot, fish guts, smoke, piss, sweat, bread baking, dogs panting, horses defecating mid-step, and the faint, cloying sweetness of someone burning incense too close to the dung heap. This is what morning smells like in your part of town. The stones beneath your feet are slick, some with rainwater, some with things better left unnamed. You wrap your shawl tighter and keep walking, dodging puddles as best you can. Not that it makes a difference. Your hem is already wet. It always is. Your destination is the public fountain at the corner of the square, a stone basin carved like a lion, whose mouth trickles a slow, pitiful stream of water into a moss-covered trough. It's not fresh, it's not clean, but it's shared, which is almost the same thing in this part of town. You wait your turn behind 2 women, one wringing out linens that were once white, the other scrubbing her toddler's feet while muttering curses. The child looks at you with wide, suspicious eyes. You look away. You've seen that look before. They grow into adults who avoid your shadow in the street, but know your name when the sun goes down. When it's finally your turn, you fill your clay mug and rinse your mouth out. It tastes like tin. You spit into the gutter and wipe your lips. That's as close to oral hygiene as you'll get today. If you're lucky, you might chew on a sprig of mint later if you find one discarded in the market trash. Brushing teeth? That's not a thing here. Not for you. Maybe some rich woman in velvet is dabbing crushed charcoal on a linen cloth and pretending she's a saint. But down here, the best you can hope for is not to gag on your own morning breath while speaking to a client. You dip your fingers into the basin again, splash your face. The cold water bites at your skin and leaves your cheeks red. Not from rouge this time, but from contact. You scrub the corners of your eyes, run wet fingers through your hair. It tangles, resists. You smooth it back anyway. You sniff your armpit. Wince. There's a bathhouse, but it costs coin you don't have yet. The last time you went was 3 weeks ago, and even then you only washed. No massage, no soap, just hot water, and shared space with 6 other women, one of whom had lice, and one who was missing 2 toes. Still, it was heaven. Today, you do what most do. Fake it. You carry yourself like you're clean. You dab your neck with rose water if you have it. If not, vinegar. If not vinegar, the oily perfume that smells faintly of flowers and more heavily of regret. You rub your wrists with a damp cloth and hope it's enough to pass a sniff test. Some clients don't care. Some even like the scent of sweat. Others complain, but still come back. One told you once that you smelled like the stables, then paid extra to see you again. Men are strange. Your stomach growls loudly. You forgot to eat yesterday. Or maybe you just didn't have anything to eat. Either way, you're hungry now. You make your way toward the market, where the bakers are setting up. The bread stall smells incredible, yeasty, warm, golden-crusted loaves laid out like temptation on coarse linen. You look, but don't touch. You know better. Bread like that is for the merchants' wives, for the tithing monks, for the tavern keeper's son, with hands too soft for honest work. Instead, you move down the row, past the butcher, his stall already buzzing with flies, toward a woman selling yesterday's leftovers. You recognize her. She doesn't smile at you, but she doesn't look away either. That's the best you can ask for. You trade one of your coins for a chunk of rye so hard it might double as a weapon. It's dense, misshapen, and tough as tree bark. You break it with effort, chew slowly, carefully. You imagine this is what it's like eating wood. A splinter scrapes your gum. You don't care. It's food. Sometimes, if you're flush with coin, you'll get cheese, a little round of goat's milk gone, just slightly sour. But not today. Today you eat bread and pretend it's a feast. You look around at the others in the square. Wives gossiping, children begging, a friar yelling something about damnation from the corner, a soldier kicking mud off his boots. No one pays attention to you. That's a blessing. In the daylight, invisibility is safety. You drink from the fountain again to help the bread go down. It swells in your gut, heavier than it should be. It'll hold you for a few hours, maybe until night. There's a tavern nearby where the owner sometimes lets you wash up in the back if business is slow and you've been kind to him recently. You consider it. Your hair needs it. Your skin is grimy, but you also know what he'll expect in return. And this early in the day, you're not ready to pay that price. So instead, you make your way back toward your corner of the brothel. On the way, you step into a side alley where the waste trench runs. It stinks, but there's a bucket there. You fill it from a dripping eave and duck behind a crumbling wall to wash the parts of yourself that matter most. Your thighs, your hands, your underarms. Quick, efficient. Cold. Always cold. No soap. Just cloth and water. You finish in under 2 minutes and wring the cloth out as best you can. It drips onto your shoes. You sigh. This is what passes for cleanliness in your life. Not rituals, not luxury, just enough to avoid infection. Just enough to convince someone with coin that you're worth touching. Your hair is tangled, but you finger comb it until it lies flat. You tie it back with a strip of linen, cleanest one you have, and adjust your shawl. You check the hem of your dress. It's not torn in the front. That's good. Torn means desperate, and desperate doesn't sell. You look down at your hands. They're calloused, red around the knuckles. There's a scratch across your palm you don't remember getting. You rub it gently, then pull your sleeves down to hide them, because soon someone will want to see your hands, to touch them, to be touched. And they don't want to see proof of the scrubbing, the freezing, the effort it takes just to show up looking like something someone might pay for. You walk back into the noise, into the stink, into the chaos of the waking city. Your stomach is no longer empty. Your skin is no longer filthy. You're as clean as you can be. Now, it's time to work. You're dressed, but not comfortably, not safely, and not entirely by choice. Your clothing, like your body, is a tool. It's not designed for comfort. It's designed for attention, for survival, for walking the thin line between temptation and acceptability in a world that wants to use you and judge you in the same breath. You start your morning already dressed in the rough wool you slept in, because undressing fully is a luxury or a risk, or both. But when it's time to work, really work, you change into the only other dress you own. It's cleaner, thinner, slightly more revealing, not so much that it screams, but just enough to whisper. You lift it from the peg where it hangs folded once, neatly, like it deserves respect, though few ever give it. The fabric is old, a faded red, once rich but now dulled by years of sweat, rain, and hands that never asked permission. It's thinner than it should be. The seams are strained. There's a tear under the armhole you try to ignore. One more wash, and it might fall apart for good. Still, it's what you have. You pull the shift over your head again, then the red dress over that, tying the laces snug to give the illusion of fullness where the hunger has taken things away. The bodice is tight. It flattens more than it lifts, but the neckline has slipped over the years, drooping slightly lower than modest women dare. That's the point. The dress is your advertisement, your armor, your camouflage. You cinch a belt around your waist, not because it's needed to hold anything, but because it suggests shape, discipline, even elegance, if only from a distance. On the belt hangs your pouch with your 3 remaining coins, a small wooden comb, and a rag you use for, well, everything. It's not clean, but neither is the city. Your shoes are little more than leather slippers, worn through in places. You feel the cobblestones beneath with every step, and when it rains, they soak instantly. You've stuffed bits of straw in them more than once. Today, you don't bother. You know the roots well enough to avoid the worst of the muck. Usually, if it's cold, you add a cloak-thin wool again, with a hood that only half keeps the rain off. It smells of mildew and wet dog, but it hides your face when you don't want to be seen, when you want to be invisible. That, too, is a kind of power. But you don't wear jewelry. Not anymore. Not since one of the guards accused you of stealing a ring he claimed belonged to his dead wife. He tore it from your finger and laughed while doing it. You never had another. You've seen some girls try necklaces, bits of colored ribbon in the hair, even false pearls, but they all vanish eventually, broken, taken, pawned. You glance down at yourself. You look passable, sellable, which is the word no one says, but everyone means. Your dress is work clothing, which, in your case, means it's meant to be taken off. Not carefully, not kindly. It has buttons in front for ease, not for you, but for them. The men, the ones who come in smelling of sour ale and too much sweat, and talk about how pretty you are, like you're a doll they found in a ditch. Sometimes you wonder what it would be like to wear a real dress. A good one. Thick velvet. Blue, maybe. With sleeves so long they drag when you walk, and a high neckline to show you don't need to show anything. A lady's dress. One that makes people bow when you pass, not hiss through their teeth or mutter about damnation. You saw a woman once, riding past in a carriage, wrapped in green silk and fur trim. Her face was powdered, her shoes clean. She looked at you through the window, eyes like glass, then looked away. You never forgot that. But your shelter, your home, is far from a carriage or a velvet room. It's a single rented space in a brothel or a chamber in a slum where no one asks who's sleeping in whose bed. Your room is small, so small you can touch all four walls without stepping away from the bed, if it even has walls. Some places are just curtained-off corners in bigger buildings, makeshift rooms divided by old blankets, smoke-stained linen, and wishful thinking. The walls, when they exist, are thin, wood, usually, sometimes stone, always damp. You hear everything: your neighbors fighting, laughing, snoring, the creak of bed springs, the quiet weeping, the moans. Real or fake, you can't always tell. Your roof is thatch, full of spiders, always leaking. In winter, the wind slices through the gaps. In summer, it traps the heat like an oven. And if there's a fire down the street, you sleep with one eye open because your entire life is made of things that burn quickly: wood, straw, cloth, reputation. There's no fireplace in your room, just a small brazier, if you're lucky, and if you've got coin for coals. Most nights, it stays cold. You pile on all the blankets. You have 2, maybe 3. You sleep curled tight, not because you're afraid, but because it holds in the warmth. Mostly. Pests? Of course. Fleas, lice, bedbugs, rats. They're companions now. Familiar. Expected. You learn to slap without waking fully. You itch without flinching. You scratch until your skin peels, and then you move on. Sometimes a client will complain. "You've got bugs," he'll say, as if it's your fault. You want to ask, "And what do you think lives in your beard, sir?" But you don't. You smile, apologize, pretend, shame. The floor is packed dirt or warped wood. It tilts slightly, so your wash basin always spills toward the corner. There's no chamber pot. You use a bucket and empty it when you can, or you wait until night and walk to the trench behind the tavern, carefully, quietly, with your shawl over your face and your knife tucked in your sleeve. Yes, you carry a knife. It's not big, but it's sharp, and it has saved you more than once from a drunk who wouldn't take no, from a guard who didn't like your tone, from a fellow worker who thought your corner was hers. And even inside, even at home, even in your bed, you never feel safe. Not truly. Safety is a fantasy, something that happens to other people. People with doors that lock, with families, with husbands who don't need to be paid to lie down next to them. Sometimes, in the early morning before the streets wake, you hear the church bells in the distance. You wonder what it's like inside, in the stone stillness, under coloured windows and vaulted ceilings. You wonder if the priests ever pray for women like you. They don't. You take one last look at yourself before leaving. Your dress is straight, your sleeves are clean, your hair is back. You smell faintly of vinegar and cheap flowers. You are dressed, prepared, armoured in cloth and habit and muscle memory. Outside, the city is alive. People pretending they don't see you, others pretending they don't know you. You walk with confidence, not pride, but purpose. You walk like someone who belongs, because if you don't, someone might remind you how quickly you can be removed. The streets are waiting. The clients are waking. The laws are watching. And your room, your clothes, your shelter, they'll all still be here when you return. Assuming you do, work doesn't wait, and neither does survival. The city has woken up, and so have its hungers. You step out into the narrow street, hem dragging through last night's runoff, eyes scanning for the familiar guards, clients, rivals. You've trained yourself to see the danger before it speaks, to smell the coin before it rattles. You have to. This isn't just sex. This is survival. And this job, your job, is labor. Make no mistake. Your body is your craft, your storefront, your product, and your advertisement. It's bruised, it's tired, but it's still in business. You work when others don't. While merchants are still unlocking their stalls, while bakers are still pulling blackened bread from their ovens, you're already doing the thing no one admits needs doing. Maybe it starts with a glance, a nod to a man on his way to the docks. He's got calloused hands and a coin pouch you've seen half empty before noon. Maybe he follows you into the alley. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he only wants to talk. But talking doesn't pay for coal or bread. So you ask him what he wants. He stares at your mouth. He doesn't care about your voice. If he pays, you take him around the corner to a familiar doorway, a room you rent by the half hour. There's straw on the floor, no bed, just enough space to kneel, or not kneel, depending. If he doesn't pay, you walk away, fast, with your hand near your knife, or, if he's the wrong kind of man, you smile and lie, say your time is booked, that you've got a client waiting just behind the butcher's, that your brother's watching. He doesn't need to know you don't have a brother. You've learnt to sell the lie as much as the service. There's no clocking in for your work, no schedule, no breaks. You eat when you can. You sit when the bench isn't taken. You drink if someone buys you something. You sleep when you're too exhausted to stay upright, or when a client lets you stay the night either kindly or out of laziness. The brothel, if you're lucky enough to be working out of one, is run like a business, which means someone else gets a cut. The madam, usually, she takes half, sometimes more, for protection, which is a fancy way of saying if someone beats you and you haven't paid her, she won't intervene. She keeps records, not always written, sometimes just scratches on the wall or beads on a string or memory sharper than a banker's. If you short her, she'll know. If you lie to her, you'll bleed. She's not cruel, not always, just practical. She's you, with fewer teeth and more scars. The rooms she gives you are small, always warm, always stale. The same bed every man lies on. The same smell no matter how many times you scrub. You change the sheets only when they're wet enough to complain. If you work the streets instead, it's different, riskier, but sometimes more coin. You set up near taverns, near ports, near churches if you're brave. Not too close to the bishop's door, he doesn't like reminders, but near enough that desperate men with wine on their breath and sin in their eyes can find you. You deal with more violence on the street, more uncertainty. You get grabbed, slapped, pulled by the arm. You learn to fake a smile while keeping your weight on the ball of your foot in case you need to run. And you do run. Sometimes. Not often. You're not fast anymore. You're not protected. Not really. Yes, in some cities prostitution is technically legal. You're registered. You pay tax. You wear a badge or a ribbon or a stupid piece of coloured cloth to mark you as a woman of the trade. They say it's for regulation, but it's really for shaming. You're allowed to exist, but only in certain places, certain hours. Stray too far from the red light district, and you're a criminal again, not a worker, a problem, a target. And the city guard? They're no help. Some are your best clients. Others rough you up for sport, and others still shake you down for coin you never owed. You try not to resist. You smile. You call them sir. You pretend not to see the buckle unfastening as they shove you behind a doorway. No one saves a whore, especially not from the law. You clean yourself when you can. With vinegar, with stale wine, with urine, if you must. You do your best not to catch what the others have: boils, ulcers, rashes that turn into rot. But you're already itching. You ignore it. A woman you know, Elise, she stopped coming to work last week. Word is she's in the poorhouse. Word is her teeth fell out. Word is she tried to bite a client and got locked in the cellar. You stop asking questions. You don't want to know which part of the story is true. When business is slow, you do other work. You help clean the brothel, scrub the sheets, chase off the rats. You might run errands for the tavern keeper in exchange for a bowl of stew. You might sew buttons onto someone's coat if you still remember how. Once, you helped an old man write a letter. He paid you with a boiled egg and a story about a daughter who never wrote back. You listened politely, ate the egg slowly. It was the softest thing you'd had in weeks. But mostly, your labor is the same. Endless, repetitive, unpaid in ways that matter. Paid only in coin, which buys food, and food which buys time. Not comfort, not escape, just another day. And always, there are men, young ones with trembling hands and the smell of wood smoke, old ones with bad breath and worse intentions, married ones who whisper things they're too afraid to say at home, violent ones who want to hurt you, gentle ones who make you wish you could feel something again, drunk ones who can't finish, sober ones who finish too fast. They don't see you. They see a service, a product, a place to spend what they've earned or stolen or bartered for. You smile when they talk. You nod. You moan when expected. You pretend their words mean something. You ask them to come again, even if you hope they won't. You are not in love. You are not desired. You are convenient, but you endure. That's the job no one talks about. Not the moaning, not the seduction, not the lace and velvet fantasies written by men who've never smelled the inside of a brothel. The real work is endurance. You endure discomfort, pain, hunger, shame. You endure your body being treated like a coin purse and your soul being left in the corner. You endure jokes at your expense, names shouted from passing carts, sermons that use your life as a warning. You endure because you must, because someone needs feeding, because winter's coming, because last night's coin will be gone by tomorrow, because you are not allowed to stop, and because there's no other job for a woman like you, no apprenticeship, no inheritance, no guild to join, only this. And so you walk back out, shoulders straight, chin high, ready to endure again, because the next man is already watching, and he has coins, and you still have rent to pay. Your body may be for sale, but your soul, that's always someone else's business. Religion is everywhere. It hangs in the air like incense, sweet, cloying, and impossible to ignore. It drips from the mouths of preachers and whispers from behind confessionals. It stares at you from stained glass saints with unblinking eyes. And every part of your life, every coin you earn, every breath you take it, all happens under the long, narrow shadow of the church. You were taught since childhood that your body was a temple. Then, one day, it became a marketplace. And now, the church says it's a crime scene. The contradiction is constant. They tell you you're a sinner, but they also say you're necessary. They condemn the work, but allow the brothels. They denounce your body, but regulate it. You're a paradox made flesh, despised but not removed, shamed but not banished, publicly reviled, privately tolerated. In some towns, the church even taxes you. Yes, the men who preach purity collect coin from your labor. The same priest who thunders from the pulpit about chastity has ink stains on his hands from signing brothel licenses. He looks you in the eyes on Sundays, then looks away quickly like your presence might infect the altar. And still, you go to Mass. You have to. Even you don't want to end up on the wrong side of a sermon. You sit in the back, head down, veil on, praying no one notices. But knowing they do, you feel the glances, the whispers. The way the woman beside you shifts slightly away. You're marked, and not just by your clothing. You're marked by the idea of you. People don't need to know your name. They just need to know what you are. Confession is worse. There's a special kind of humiliation in telling a man behind a wooden screen that you let someone bite your shoulder in exchange for bread, that you faked moans while praying silently that the creaking bed wouldn't collapse again, that you let a stranger spit in your mouth because it meant you could afford candles. And the priest, he listens. Then he sighs. He asks questions. Too many. Specific ones. Personal ones. You wonder if he's writing it down. You wonder if he's judging you or enjoying it. Maybe both. He tells you to repent. He gives you prayers, Hail Marys, Paternosters, 3 dozen, maybe more. Say them with sincerity, he says, as if you haven't already repeated them so many times they've become background noise. But the worst part isn't the judgment. It's the pity. You don't need pity. You need coal and soap and maybe a pair of shoes that don't leak in the rain. You've tried to believe. Truly, when you were younger, you used to light candles for saints. You prayed to Street Mary Magdalene, the so-called fallen woman, who somehow became a symbol of redemption. You thought maybe there was a place for women like you. Maybe grace had room for dirt. But now you light candles out of habit, not hope. Superstition fills the cracks where faith used to live. You keep a sprig of dried rosemary under your mattress to ward off bad luck. You wear a charm around your neckwood, not gold-etched with a crooked cross. A man gave it to you once after a job, said it would protect your womb. You don't know if it works, but you keep it anyway. You've seen girls rub salt across their doorsteps. Others tie red thread around their thighs before bed to prevent conception. One girl swears by whispering prayers to the moon. Another buries her nail clippings in the courtyard so no man can bind her soul. You've tried them all, because why not? You've already been punished by men. Might as well try not to be punished by fate. There's talk, too, about demons, succubi, spirits that enter your room at night and drain your strength. You're told they visit the impure, the wicked. You've felt the weight on your chest before, waking breathless, unable to move. Is it a demon or just exhaustion? You can't tell anymore. Sometimes you dream of fire. You dream of flames licking your skin, not burning you, but purifying you. You wake with tears on your face and your legs aching from nothing. You stare at the ceiling, trying to remember if you prayed before you slept, or if you forgot again, but you don't fear hell. Hell is a place where you're judged, hurt, used, and discarded. You already live there. What you fear is dying forgotten, dying unmourned, dying with your body left in a pit for fallen women, while your neighbors shake their heads and mutter that you brought it on yourself. You've heard of such burials. No headstone, no rites. Just a shallow grave and a priest muttering something half-hearted under his breath, trying to get it over with. Some girls make deals with local monk, quiet ones. A silver here, a favor there. Just enough to guarantee a prayer said when the time comes. Some try to go clean before the end, take the veil, live in penance. But that takes connections. That takes permission. You're not sure you'll get it. Still, you keep a rosary hidden in your drawer. The beads are smooth, wooden, worn from fingers. You touch them on cold nights when you're alone. Not to pray necessarily, just to feel something that wasn't bought. You're not godless. You're just tired of gods who only speak to men, and you know what they call you, not by name. Names are too human, too kind. You're a harlot, a temptress, a scarlet woman, the cause of sin, a vessel of lust, but never a worker, never a survivor. They preach that Eve tempted Adam, that women bring ruin, that your very form is a test, a danger, a trap. And yet, they still knock on your door. They still press coins into your hand. They still look you in the eyes and ask if you're alone tonight. You wonder if they confess afterward. You wonder what penance they're given for buying the same sin you're condemned for selling. You wonder if it weighs on them or if they just sleep soundly in their warm beds beside wives who never know where the coin went. The hypocrisy is thick as incense, and you breathe it in like everyone else. But you don't believe them anymore. Not really. You believe in the weight of coins, in the power of silence, in the protection of rosemary, in the memory of a prayer your mother taught you before her hands grew too tired to hold your face. You whisper it sometimes, not to be saved, but to remember who you were. You have to eat. You have to pretend you enjoy things. even if you don't. Evenings in your world are strained. On one hand, they mean business, the rush of customers, the possibility of more coin, or at least enough for firewood and food. But on the other hand, evenings are the only time you might get to pretend to live. That starts with food. If you're lucky, if today was generous, if the clients were steady, and the coins clinked into your pouch without too many bruises, you might afford a hot meal, maybe even a seat at a proper table. And by proper, you mean not the floor. The tavern is loud already, glowing amber in the fog as the sun sinks behind the city walls. Laughter pours out the doorway along with pipe smoke and the sharp smell of old beer. Men crowd the benches, labourers, soldiers, journeymen, thieves in merchant clothing. You know half their faces. You've had more than a few of them. You keep your chin high as you walk in. A few eyes land on you, linger, then slide away. You don't sit near them. You know better. You claim a bench near the fire, or as close as you can get without someone telling you to move. A pot is simmering over the hearth. You can smell turnip, onions, and something vaguely meaty. Could be pork, could be rat. You don't ask. You pay with 2 of your remaining coins and accept a shallow wooden bowl filled with stew. It burns your tongue. You don't care. The heat is real. It fills your belly like hope. The bread is stale. The broth is greasy. But there's salt precious, coarse, and sharp on the tongue. It makes you feel briefly civilized, like a person, like someone who matters. Sometimes you eat alone. Sometimes you're joined by another girl, someone from the brothel, or one who works the streets like you. You talk about the men you served like you'd talk about weather, casually, bitterly, with a little gallows humor. You laugh together, not because it's funny, but because the alternative is crying, and tears are too expensive. The conversation turns. Someone mentions a man who paid in foreign coins. Someone else got a pair of shoes from a generous monk. Another girl got beaten and lost a tooth. The stories pour like warm beer, bitter and flat, but they go down easy enough. And drinks? If you can spare the coin, or if someone offers to buy you one, you drink. Usually ale, sometimes weak wine. Once, someone gave you something strong and clear that tasted like burning. You didn't remember getting home that night, just woke up with bruises on your hips and straw in your hair. Still, for a brief hour or two, you sit among others like you. You eat, you drink, you laugh. It's not peace, but it's something close to pause. If you're not in a tavern, you eat in your room or in the alley behind the brothel. Bread and boiled peas maybe, or a crust soaked in broth from someone else's leftovers. A few bites of cheese, hard and sharp enough to make your gums bleed. You chew slowly, savoring every flavor, even the ones that hint at mold. You wash it down with water if it's safe, with wine if it isn't, or beer, thick and warm, barely fermented, brewed with whatever was left in the barrel. Not for pleasure, for safety, for calories. The water in this city can kill you, but beer can't. Usually, food is function, fuel, rarely joy. But entertainment, that's trickier. Sometimes the tavern hires a minstrel. He sings ballads about knights and maidens while drunk men shout requests and throw crumbs. You don't care about the stories anymore. You've been the maiden. You've seen the knights. Neither are what the songs promise. Still, you hum along, quietly. The melody is familiar, and it's something that isn't work. You watch people dance too. When the ale is flowing and the fiddles start, the bench is clear and feet stomp the floor like war drums. Laughter rises, hands clap. It's not graceful, it's not choreographed, but it's real. You used to dance. Now you mostly watch. Your knees hurt too much, and you don't like hands on your waist unless you're being paid for it. But sometimes, after a few drinks, you let yourself move. Just a little. A sway of the hips, a tapping toe. a flicker of the girl you used to be before all of this. Festivals are rare, but when they come, they explode. Feasts, parades, games in the square, jugglers, fire breathers, a man who eats glass. They put on masks and pretend it's not all the same suffering underneath. People get drunk, loud, friendly. On festival days, you make more coin if you can stay upright, if you don't drink too much, if you don't end up with a client who mistakes celebration for ownership. Once, during the Feast of Fools, a noble dressed as a bishop paid you 5 silver to call him your grace, while he wept into your shoulder. You didn't ask why. You just held him. Other times, entertainment is darker. Fights, brawls, hanging. When someone's caught stealing, they're dragged to the square. Everyone gathers. Even you. You don't want to watch, but it's something to do. Something to remind you that at least it's not you up there. Yet, you've seen women punished too. For theft, for lies, for selling their bodies where it wasn't allowed. Public lashings, stocks, branding. Shame paraded through the street like theatre. And the worst part? The crowd cheers. They laugh. They throw things. They chant psalms while pointing fingers. You see familiar faces in the crowd. Men who've been inside you pretending they've never seen you before. Entertainment, they call it. Distraction, more like. From the hunger, the cold, the fear. So, you make your own entertainment. You sing sometimes, alone, under your breath. Songs you remember from when your mother still held your hand. Songs in a language that doesn't exist anymore. Just sounds, floating in the dark. You tell stories with the other girls, half truth, half fantasy. About a merchant who fell in love and offered to take you to Venice. About a knight who paid in gold. About a future with warm sheets and soft hands and laughter that doesn't feel like armor. You know they're lies, but lies are softer than truth. Sometimes you light a candle just to watch the wax melt. The way it puddles, the way it flickers, the way it smells faintly of bees and old prayers. And sometimes, if the night is quiet and the air is still, and no one's screaming or coughing or calling your name, you sit on the edge of your bed with a heel of bread in your lap and wine in your mug, and for a few minutes you forget what you are. You're just a woman, eating dinner, listening to music through the wall, breathing, existing. Pain is expected. Sickness is routine. Death is never far behind. You wake one morning and your throat burns. Not a tickle, not dryness. A rawness like sand scraped through the inside of your neck. Your head is heavy. Your joints ache. You try to sit up, and your ribs protest. It's not dramatic. It's just familiar. You're getting sick. Again, this happens often. You don't remember the last time you felt truly well. Your life doesn't allow it. There's no rest, no nutrition, no warmth, no time. You rise anyway, because staying in bed means no coin, and no coin means no food, and no food means it gets worse, fast. But there's fear in you now, quiet, bone-deep fear, because you've seen what sickness does. You've watched the other girls waste away. One day, they're laughing with stew in their hands. A week later, they're coughing blood and too weak to stand. The mistress of the house gives them 2 days in the back room, then tells them to leave if they can't get back to work. One girl stayed too long, started shaking, fevered, raving. The smell of her made the customers complain. She was put outside in the alley. She died there. Rats chewed her fingers before the priest arrived. No one paid for her burial. No one remembered her name. And so, you move. You breathe shallowly, trying not to cough. You drink hot water if you can. Salted broth if you're lucky. You smear garlic paste on your chest, because someone told you once that it draws out infection. Maybe it does. Maybe it just stinks enough to keep the customers away until you're better. but you can't stop working. Not for a fever, not for aching limbs, not even for blood. You learn to disguise illness. You pinch your cheeks for color. Bite your lip before walking in the room so it looks redder. Rub your temples to bring heat to your face. Smile when your gums throb. Laugh when your nose bleeds. Your body is not a temple. It's a battleground. And medicine? That's a game of luck and superstition. There are apothecaries, yes, but their remedies are expensive. Powdered herbs, dried flowers, mysterious bottles labeled in Latin. Most of them can't help you. The ones that can, you can't afford. Instead, you turn to the women who know how to make medicine, the old ones, the herbalists, the midwives, the ones who walk quietly with satchels of dried roots and mud-stained fingers. They don't always ask for coin. Sometimes they ask for favors, information, a night of safety, a promise not to name them if things go wrong. You drink teas that taste like dirt. You chew bark that numbs your tongue. You rub crushed mint and honey into wounds and hope they don't rot. And then there are the other treatments, the more dangerous ones: bloodletting, leeches, cupping with hot glass. You tried it once paid with a silver you couldn't spare. The barber surgeon tied a cloth around your arm, sliced a vein, and let the blood pour into a bowl. Said it would release the bad humors. You fainted halfway through. You didn't feel better, just lighter, emptier, colder. You never went back. Some girls pray instead. Others burn herbs at night: sage, yarrow, juniper. Some chant to saints. Others make offerings to the moon. Everyone is trying something, because you don't just fear sickness itself. You fear what follows. You fear the pustules, boils that rise on the inner thighs or under the breasts, hot, red, and weeping. You fear the ones that mean more than infection, the ones that come with rashes, with pain when you relieve yourself, with open sores in places no one should ever have sores. The city calls it the French disease, or the Great Pox. They say it came from soldiers, from travelers, from sin, always from someone else, never from the man who just left your room, sweating and red-faced, dropping coin on the table without looking back. You fear your womb, whether it still works, whether it's broken, whether something is festering inside it. You fear the cramps that last too long, the blood that comes too early, the blood that doesn't come at all. Pregnancy is its own kind of sickness. It can mean more money. Some men pay more for the swollen ones, but it can also mean pain, ruin, death. You've seen it go bad. Girls too young, girls too thin, girls too tired. You hear the screaming through the thin walls, then silence, then a sheet carried out with 2 bodies instead of 1. Midwives are better than doctors. They know more, but they're blamed when things go wrong. If a mother dies, it's the midwife's fault. If the child lives, it's the mercy of God. You know of women who've tried to end a pregnancy: pennyroyal, mugwort, hot baths and heavy rocks. Some succeed, some don't. Some bleed too long, some never stop. And there is always someone watching: the church, the guards, the neighbors, ready to call you a murderer, ready to punish you for what they never had to carry. And yet, the biggest fear is plague. You know the signs. Everyone does. First, the sweating, then the headaches, then the black lumps under arms, between thighs, behind ears. You've seen them swell to the size of apples. You've seen them burst. When it comes, the city turns on itself. Doors are boarded shut. Families flee. Streets go silent. Corpses pile at corners, stacked like wood. Priests walk with bells, warning of death. And those who can't leave like you wait for the knock at the door. During plague times, you can't work. Men stop coming. Or worse, they still come, coughing and pale, desperate to spend what might be their last night feeling something warm. You serve them anyway, because what's the alternative? You think about death often. You have to. You've seen it in the faces of the girls who didn't make it. You've seen it in the mirror, in your own eyes, when the cough won't stop, when the fever grips, when you're too weak to lace your own dress. You wonder what people will say when you die. Nothing kind, you know that. No beautiful eulogy, no candlelit vigil, just a whispered, "Well, she had it coming," as if death were a wage you finally earned. There's no grave waiting for you, no stone, maybe a pit, maybe a cloth-wrapped body dumped at night by a brothel worker with a lantern and a shovel. You dream about it sometimes, the fall into the dirt, the silence, the peace, but then you wake up, and your body still hurts, and you're still breathing. And so you move again, you chew the bark, you drink the tea, you say the prayers, you light the candle, you live. Because as long as you're alive, you still get to decide something, anything. Even if it's just whether to wear your red dress or your brown one. Even if it's just whether to take the medicine or spit it out. Even if it's just the choice to get up one more time, you live, you endure, you fight the sickness. Because death will come on its own. You don't need to invite it in. You are a woman. But not the kind they write poems about. Being a woman in the Middle Ages means one thing above all else: burden. From the moment you could walk, you were taught to carry something: water, laundry, silence, expectation. Later, you carried shame, then men, then children, sometimes all at once. You were not born to freedom, you were born to function. And now? Now you live in the sliver of space where society has carved out an exception: the prostitute. Not quite wife, not quite servant, not quite criminal, not quite free. You're a woman without the protection of a husband, without the reverence of virginity, without the dignity of widowhood. You exist in the gap, and you carry more than most. They say your kind can't be good mothers. But many of you are. Some of the girls you work beside have children hidden in side rooms, quiet, wide-eyed things who know too much and speak too little. Some of them grew up in brothels. You did, maybe. Or maybe you lost your child years ago and still hear their cry in your sleep. Or maybe you had one, once, and left them at the steps of the convent with a name you'll never say again. And childbirth. It's terrifying. It's not lit by candles and love. It's lit by pain and the groan of your own ribs cracking as something pushes its way through. There's no soft bed, no midwife with gentle hands. If you're lucky, a friend helps. If not, you bite down on cloth and try not to bleed out on the floor. And when the child comes, the questions begin. Can I feed it? Can I keep it? Will I still be able to work? Some clients won't pay for a mother. Others will pay more. But either way, a child changes things. It cries. It needs. It sees. So sometimes the answer is no. Some women in your position hand the baby over to the church, immediately baptized and abandoned in the same breath. Some keep them until they can't anymore. Some leave them in places where they might be found. Others don't. You've heard the rumors. You've seen the girls disappear for a day and come back silent. You don't ask. Family is complicated here. You may have had a mother. She might have been like you. She might have sold cloth or soup or herself, or maybe she died young, from plague, from birth, from a man's hand. You may have had siblings. You may have lost them to war, to famine, to workhouses. You may have no one now. Or worse, you do have family, but they won't speak your name anymore. Your father? Maybe he was kind. Maybe he hit you. Maybe he sold you. Maybe he never knew your face. That's how it is for women here. You belong to someone until you don't. Then you belong to everyone. Then to no one. Some girls cling to each other like sisters. Not all, but some. They share bread, share laughter, braid each other's hair, and lie awake at night, whispering secrets to the ceiling. You've had a few friends like that. One died in childbirth, one ran away with a sailor and never returned, one simply stopped waking up. And then there are the children who aren't yours. They wander the streets like ghosts barefoot, with bellies bloated from hunger and eyes too old for their faces. Some beg, some steal, some sell things they shouldn't even know exist. You watch them with a kind of ache, because that could be your child. Or maybe it was you. Children in your world don't get childhood. They start working early, cleaning, fetching, selling scraps in the market. The lucky ones help their mothers mend clothes or tend goats. The unlucky ones get sent to factories or brothels. You've seen girls come in barely old enough to bleed, bought, sold, rescued by madams who promise safety in exchange for obedience. Their eyes are always wide the first night, then dull by the third. You try to help them in your way. Teach them how to spot danger, how to fake pleasure, how to hide coin under the floorboards. But there's only so much you can do. Some survive, some disappear, some end up pregnant before they've stopped growing themselves. The city pretends not to see, unless it wants to punish. A woman gets caught stealing bread for her child, she's whipped. A man gets caught beating his wife, he's fined. A prostitute gets pregnant, she's shamed. A nobleman abandons his bastard, nothing happens. That's the hierarchy. Men are forgiven, women are forgotten. You once saw a woman publicly accused of infanticide. Maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't. Didn't matter. They shaved her head, stripped her bare, and paraded her through the streets before locking her in a cage to starve. She screamed until she couldn't. They said it was justice. You called it cruelty. Marriage? That's not a path you expect anymore. Not for someone like you. Men visit you, but they don't marry you. Not publicly, not proudly. Some fall in love, or say they do. One swore he'd take you away to the country. One promised to buy you a house. One gave you a ribbon for your hair and said it matched your eyes. They all left, eventually. Marriage is for clean women, or at least cleaner. Still, some prostitutes do marry, usually to men who've fallen too far to judge. A stable hand, a butcher with debts, a foreigner with no questions. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's not love that matters. It's stability, a shared roof, a name, someone to keep you from dying alone. That's the dream in this world. Not romance, not luxury, just not dying alone. You hear things though, stories of women who got out, who married rich, who opened taverns, who found God and changed their lives. Maybe one of them was your sister once. Maybe you still hope to be her. Maybe you know it's a lie. Still, when the candle flickers low and the city goes quiet, you sometimes close your eyes and imagine a life where your name is spoken with kindness, where your child sleeps in a bed beside you, where your body is your own and your soul is not up for barter. You imagine a family that stays, and sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough to help you sleep. The sun rises high. So does the tension. By afternoon, everything is louder. The streets are full. The city is restless. And the air has grown thick with heat and irritation. This is when tempers rise, when patience runs thin, and when people like you, women like you, become the easiest target in the room. You've already worked through the morning. Your stomach still feels hollow, despite the bread you managed to chew in between customers. Your thighs ache, your mouth is dry. The heat has made your shift cling to your skin, and your dress, heavy with sweat, rubs raw under your arms. You'd love to lie down, just for a moment, but this is the part of the day where that's impossible. You head toward the brothel, or the usual street corner. And already you can feel it, the stares, the judgment, the tension humming in the stones. Someone calls out to you from across the road, not by name. Of course not. He calls you a wench, a whore, a filthy thing. You ignore him. You've heard worse. But it still lands somewhere beneath your ribs like a rock dropped into a pond, sending slow ripples through what little strength you have left. You don't look back. He doesn't stop. He throws a cabbage core. It hits the wall behind you. Close, too close. The nearby guards laugh. One of them winks. This is the game. You are here, but not protected. Allowed, but not defended. Officially recognized, but personally despised. And it's not just the men, it's the women too. The merchant's wife, who pulls her child away when you walk past. The laundress, who spits in the street when she sees your shoes. The baker's daughter, who whispers about you behind flour-dusted hands. They look at you like you're a disease with legs. But here's the truth. You're not jealous of them. You don't want their husbands. You've had their husbands, and you wouldn't take them again, even for free. Still, the scorn hangs on you like smoke. Sometimes it's just words. Other times, it's not. You remember the last time a customer got rough. He said he liked pain. Said you would too. Said things no one should ever say while holding someone's throat. You tried to scream. You bit his hand instead. You still have the scar on your lip where he hit you. The madam told you not to fight next time. Men don't like difficult girls, she said. You want to keep your corner. You learn when to go quiet. You went quiet, and you learned. But you never forgot. Violence isn't occasional in your world, it's occupational. You've watched girls get punched over payment disputes. You've seen others locked in rooms when they tried to run. One was dragged by her hair into the street for calling a customer too small. He paid extra to watch. You carry your knife now. Not that it helps much, but it makes you feel like you have a say in your own ending. Law, don't count on it. The town watch will beat you before they protect you. And if you hurt a man, even in self-defense, it's you who's punished. She tempted him, they'll say. She was paid. She must have deserved it. Justice is a coat that never fits you. You're not allowed to testify in court. Not really. Not without a husband, a father, or a priest to vouch for your virtue, which of course you lack by definition. You once saw a girl dragged before a magistrate, accused of stealing. Her wrists were bruised from where the merchant had grabbed her. She said he never paid, that she took back what was hers. They didn't care. He was a man of business. She was a woman of the gutter. She got 10 lashes. In the square. In front of children. They called it justice. You called it typical. Then there are the religious zealots. The ones who roam the alleys with wooden crosses and glassy eyes, preaching salvation at the end of a rope. They tell you to repent, to come clean, to leave this life. And where exactly would you go? They don't offer bread, or shelter, or safety, just shame. Lots of shame. You learned early that repentance doesn't pay the rent, so you nod. You say you'll consider it. You make the sign of the cross. And then you go back to work before your corner gets claimed by someone younger and less tired. Sometimes the conflict isn't with strangers. Sometimes it's with the other women. There are rivalries. Fights over clients, over territory, over stolen coin, stolen clothes, stolen dignity. You've seen girls rip each other's hair out. You've seen them tear dresses, throw punches, scream things that only women in the same kind of hell know how to say. It's not always like that. Some of them are sisters in all but blood, but the line between ally and enemy can change in a day, especially when there's only one warm bed and 2 mouths to feed. Afternoons stretch like a wire pulled taut, too hot, too loud, too crowded. There's no privacy, nowhere to cry, no time to rest. So you learn to hold it in. You bury the fury, the humiliation, the need to scream into the sky until your lungs give out. You smile, you smooth your dress, you step back out into the road because you still have work to do, and because in a few hours the sun will fall, and the real danger, the darkness, comes next. When the sun goes down, nothing is safe. Not your body, not your room, not even your breath. Night doesn't arrive gently in this city. It falls like a hammer, fast, heavy, and without kindness. The last rays of light retreat behind rooftops, and everything changes. The noise doesn't stop, but it shifts. Daytime clatter becomes nighttime threat. The streets don't empty, they grow sharper. The drunks stumble louder. The guards walk slower. The air gets colder, but not clean. And the shadows multiply. You hate the night, not because it's quiet, but because it isn't. Even in your bed, if you're lucky enough to be in it alone, you don't feel safe. You never have. And you never will. You bolt your door. If you have a door. If it's not just a curtain held up by fraying rope, even so, it wouldn't stop anyone. You sleep with your knife near your hand, or under your pillow, or beneath your breast. Somewhere you can reach it without having to think. You know how to grab it in the dark, how to flip it in your palm before they grab your hair or cover your mouth, because that's happened before, more than once. One time, a client came back after hours. He was drunk, or high, or angry, maybe all three. He said you owed him something. You said you didn't. He broke your nose. The madam said you should have kept your voice down. Other girls were trying to sleep. The next morning, you went back to work with 2 black eyes and a crooked smile. You learned not to answer the door after midnight, but sometimes they find you anyway. The brothel isn't secure. Not really. It's a business, not a fortress. And the street isn't any safer. You know which alleys are too dark. You know which lampposts don't get lit. You know which guards take bribes to look the other way. Sometimes you leave your shift late. You cross the square alone. You keep your head down. You pretend to be invisible. But invisibility is a luxury you're rarely granted. Your body stands out. It always does. Even when you try to vanish, someone sees you. And when they see you, they assume they can have you. They forget that you're a person. Or maybe they remember and just don't care. You've been followed before. You've been cornered. You've been touched without permission by men who think paying once means they own you forever. You've seen worse. One girl, her name was Thea, never made it back one night. They found her the next morning, face down in the river. Her hair still braided. Her hands still bound. The guards said she fell. You know better. After that, you carried 2 knives. One in your sleeve, one in your boot. Still, you're not afraid all the time. Sometimes, if the moon is bright and the night is warm, and you're with other girls, you walk together. You tell jokes. You share wine. You pretend it's just a night, like any other. You try not to look at the shadows too long. You try not to listen too closely to the coughing behind the doors or the quiet sobs through the walls. Sometimes you do laugh. It's a strange laugh. Rough, sudden. It almost sounds like crying, but it counts. The streets aren't just dangerous. They're fragile. A fire could take out a whole block in minutes. You've seen it happen. One candle tips, one hearth spills, and suddenly the sky is orange and the screams are real. You keep a bag packed, one dress, your comb, your coins, a dried apple slice. If flames come, you run. You do not go back for anyone. It's understood, not spoken. Fire doesn't play favorites. When it's cold, death feels closer. Your room is a box of shivering bones. You sleep under everything you own. You lie curled like a question mark. Sometimes you put your feet in a bucket of ashes just to stop the pain in your toes. One winter, 3 girls died in 1 week. Not from plague, not from knives, just from the cold. No wood, no blankets, no warmth. They were buried in the snow like lost lambs. You remember one of their names? The others? You try to, but the days blur. You light candles for them sometimes. If you can spare the wax, when you do sleep, it's never deep. You dream of fire, of footsteps, of hands that won't let go. You wake often, gasping, listening. You've learned that silence can be just as dangerous as noise. And then there's the sickness, the quiet killer. You listen for the cough. That cough, the one that doesn't stop, that rattles the chest. That sounds like death trying to claw its way out through the lungs. You hear it in the next room. You wonder if you should say something, but what would you say? Yet better soon. Don't die tonight. Let me know if you want me to hold your hand when it gets bad. You stay quiet. You say a prayer. If you still remember how. You press your forehead to the cold wall and pretend you're somewhere else. In a room with clean sheets. In a bed that doesn't groan, with someone beside you who doesn't want anything except to see you wake up again, but no one lies next to you. Not now. And in this world, no one sleeps deeply, because sleep is cousin to death, and death doesn't knock here. It lets itself in. You lie still, listening to the city breathe, to the horses stamping, to the men shouting in their dreams, to the sobbing girl 3 rooms down, to the girl who isn't sobbing anymore. And then, finally maybe you drift, not into peace, but into something like stillness, because you've done what you could today. You lived. You endured. You didn't die. And in your world, that's enough to count as victory. You've survived the day. And now, it's time to sleep. Your body has settled into stillness. Not comfort, but stillness. Your muscles no longer twitch with readiness. Your hands are no longer clenched, hidden beneath fabric. Your thoughts have stopped spinning. You lie on your back, or maybe your side, beneath a blanket that smells like wood smoke and sweat. You stare at a ceiling full of cracks, listen to a world that doesn't stop, not even now. But you are finished. For now, the brothel is quiet. The taverns are closing. The guards are grumbling on patrol. The rats make their rounds. The air presses cool against your cheeks. Somewhere, a baby is crying. Somewhere, a man is vomiting in an alley. Somewhere, someone is praying soft and quick and desperate. But here, in this small room, this crooked, creaking, stained little corner of the world you've made it through. And that matters, because this life you've just lived for a day, it's not a storybook. It's not romance. It's not sin. It's not scandal or comedy or even tragedy. It's work. It's routine. It's 1,000 small humiliations stitched together with grit and bone-deep weariness. And it is, above all else, real. There are no pretty endings here. No rescue by candlelight. No rich man knocking on the door with a ring and redemption. No absolution from the church. No justice from the courts. There is only survival. And tonight, you did. That's something. Because everything you did today, every choice, every compromise, every bruise you hid, and every coin you counted was about staying alive. That was the job. That was the goal. And you met it. Barely. But you did. So tonight, you lie still. You let your shoulders rest. You let the past blur at the edges. You release the faces of the men. You stop remembering the names of the girls who didn't make it. You let the sounds grow softer. The creaks, the coughs, the soft knock of wind against the shutters. You let your breath even out. You let your jaw unclench. You let your mind slow. You think for a moment about what could have been if you'd been born elsewhere. If you'd had a mother who wasn't poor. If you'd been a man. If you'd married. If you'd run. If you'd stayed. But these thoughts, they don't lead anywhere good. So instead, you focus on now. On the warmth of your own body beneath the covers. on the rhythm of your breath, on the feeling of not moving, not working, not pretending, not selling, just being. And as your eyelids grow heavier, you remind yourself you don't owe anyone anything right now. Not your story, not your smile, not your body. You are alone. And in this moment, that's peace. Tomorrow may come with more hunger, more noise, more danger. It may bring another fever, or a flood, or a fire, or another man with silver in one hand and violence in the other. But that's not now. Now is rest. Now is quiet. Now is sleep. And as you drift toward it, just before you leave this borrowed body behind, just before you let go of her world and return to your own, you feel something strange. Gratitude. Not for that life. No, never for that. But for this one, 4 warm socks, clean sheets, locked doors, toothpaste, antibiotics, heat on demand, plumbing, laws, laughter that isn't a shield. You remember what you have. You remember what you don't have to endure. And your final thought, before the dark takes you gently by the hand and leads you into stillness. So tonight, as you drift off, remember, you don't have to wake up in the Middle Ages. Sleep well,